Hello and welcome to create charts and dashboards using Microsoft Excel. My name is Saad Khan, and in this video we will learn how to visually analyze sales data from a sample company by creating charts that will present information like the total sales per month or the total revenue for each salesperson. With this video, we will also learn how to sort the data and create pivot tables to summarize the information we want to represent in the charts. When creating charts and graphs, being able to determine the type of chart that is more suitable for each scenario, as well as how we can format the chart or graph so that is easily to read and interpret. For this video, we will work with a prepared spreadsheet that contains sales data from a sample company that sells food products. As part of this video, you will find the file titled Sales Charts Dashboard that we will open later on directly with Excel. So let's begin. For this video, we will be using the free online version of Excel from Microsoft Office 365. You will notice that your browser opened to the free Microsoft Office online page. If you already have a Microsoft account, you can use your account to log in. If you don't have an account, simply click on sign up for free. As you can see, it will first ask you to write your email address, which doesn't have to be a Microsoft associated email. You could use your regular email and choose a password for your new account. You will then have a code sent to your email to verify the email address. Pause the video and take a moment to create your account and log in. Come back when you have completed this step. After logging into your account, you will be directed to your Office homepage. And here you have access to recent files that appears on the left side of the screen. You can also access the online versions of the different Microsoft Office programs like Word, Excel, which we will be using for this project, also PowerPoint, etc. And since for this project, we are going to be uploading a document that we'll be working with, we can do this going to our OneDrive, and in your OneDrive, you will have access to the different files that are going to be uploaded to your Microsoft Office account. As you can see, we have already sample data. To open the document, simply double click. Now that you have opened the file, you can see the data we will be working with. The data tracks the sales of food products throughout the year of 2020. For each order, we have the date the order was made, the city and region for that order, the category of the product and product name, the number of items that product that were sold in that order, also the unit price for the product and the total price for the sale, as well as salesperson who was in charge of that sale. To highlight the entire data, we can do this with the mouse manually by clicking and dragging from cell A1 all the way down to cell I100, and let's see, 123. So there's actually a little shortcut to highlight the entire data, which is clicking anywhere on the data and then type Control A, and you will see that the entire data has been highlighted now to turn into a table. You will click Insert and click OK. Now you can see that the format of the cells has changed a little bit. Every row in the table is banded, which makes it easier to read the data and tells the cells apart. Another thing that is great about turning data into table is that when we scroll down to look at data that's further down in our table, the label of the columns changes to the headers, so that makes it very convenient for when we look at value to know what that column represents. You have learned how to set up a Microsoft Office 365 account. and how to convert the data into a table to help with the charts you will be creating throughout this project. Now you are going to learn how to create pivot tables from the information provided by the data set that you will then represent in the form of graph or chart. Some of the charts you might want to create regarding the sales could be looking at the total profits by month or by salesperson. For example, looking at the total profits per month of the year, you will see that we have a column for the date of the order, but there is no column that specifically states the month of the sale. But luckily, there is a function we can write to obtain this information. You're first going to add a new column to the left of the region column. To do so, you are going to right click on the label for column B and then select insert columns. And you will see new column has been inserted to the left of the region column. And since this column is going to show the month of the order, we can rename the header as month and press enter. To extract the month name from a date, we can use the text function. And so B2, you will write equals and text to specify that you are using the text function. So here we go, equals, sorry, text. You will first write date, which is in cell A2. So simply write A2, comma. Here you will specify how you want the month to be written. By typing 3Ms with quotations, we'll abbreviate the month with 3 letters. So for January, this would be Jan, and for February, this would be Feb, and so on. Let's do the 3Ns to have the abbreviated name for each month. Then you will close the parentheses and press enter. And you will see that it's copied that formula for the whole column of the table. And we have the month for the order starting with January, followed with February, March, and so on. Now that we have the month for each order, and we are going to continue by creating a pivot tables that will summarize the information of the table to show that the total income was for the sales for each month. To create the pivot table, you will first highlight the entire table, and remember that can be done typing Control A. And then once the whole table has been highlighted, you will go to Insert and click on Pivot Table. And here it will tell you to select a table or arrange, which you have already done. And then it will have you choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. And here I always recommend to choose a new worksheet so that the pivot table doesn't affect the data that already exists on the current worksheet. Then you will click OK, and new worksheet will pop up to the left for the pivot table that we are going to create. In our case, we want to represent the total profits for each month of the year. So we would have the total price column as a value and the month category as either a row or a column to later create a graph. With this data, it will easier if we put the month category as rows. So to create your pivot table, you will drag the total price category to the values section, and then you would drag the month category to rows. And here we have just created our first pivot table, which shows what the total income was per month of this year. Looking at the data from the pivot table, you can see, for example, that August 2020 was the month with the highest earning from the sales. And now that you have this information, you have learned how to create a pivot table to summarize and calculate the total profits for each month of the year. Now you are going to represent this information in a graph, and you would format that graph to make it presentable as part of the dashboard. Now that you have a pivot table, the next step is to represent this information in a graph or a chart. However, before we move on to that, let's first name this sheet so that we can distinguish it from other worksheets we will be creating throughout this video. To do that, you will double click here on the bottom tab where it says sheet 1, and then you will rename the sheet as sales by month and click OK. One common type of chart is the line chart, which represents the data points with the line connecting them. This type of chart is normally used when a possible trend exists among the data points. So, for example, sales increasing throughout the year as company grows, we can represent this data as a line chart, which could allow us to see if there is a trend or maybe a season of the year where the sales are higher. Before we create the chart, we want to format the numbers correctly to show that they are currency or US dollars. To do this, you will highlight the cells with the values, and then where it says general in the ribbon, you will select this as currency. And since these numbers are pretty large, we can also decide to remove the two decimal places in the values. And you can do this by clicking on the decrease decimal icon on the ribbon, and you will do this twice. Now that you have formatted the values as US dollars, the next step will be creating the line chart. You will first select the data from cell A3 to B14, and in the ribbon you will select insert, and then you will click on the line icon of the chart. You have just created the first chart that will be part of the dashboard, but just as important as it is to select the correct type of chart, it's also important to format the chart correctly so that it is easy to interpret by anyone who will be analyzing the chart. You can see, for example, the current title for this chart is total, and for anyone looking at it for first time, this title isn't very descriptive of what being represented. For example, to change the title, you will first right click on the chart and then select format, and then in this menu that appears on the right side of the screen, we'll have several formatting options for the chart. To change the name of the title, you will click on chart title, and then you will type sales by month where it initially said total. Click OK. Now let's see what other things can be formatted. The horizontal axis looks fine since it lists the name of the month, and since we have a 3-letter abbreviation for each month, these are easily interpreted. As for the vertical axis stating the amount earned in sales, we could probably change the minimum bound from $500 since all months had more than $500 in sales. To do that, you would go into vertical axis, and then you would change the minimum bound from 500 to 4000 and press enter. You can see the data points extended across a larger portion of the vertical axis. And for this chart, we could also remove the legend since it just states total and it's not really necessary for interpreting the chart correctly. Great. I think the chart is looking much better now. Another formatting options that we have is to change the color of the line that joins the data points. You will go into series total and you could change the color where it says outline, and I will choose in this case a green, but you could change the color to whichever color you prefer or leave it as blue. It might not be very visible, but after changing the color of the line you can see that the data points are still blue. With this chart that you have just created, you can see that there is not really a trend of sales either increasing throughout the year or decreasing. However, you can see that the month of August have significantly higher sales than the other months, and this information could be used to assess that what might have caused this increase in sales, or even to plan ahead for 2021, making sure that there's enough inventory for an increase in sales during the summer months. Now you are going to learn about bar charts, and we'll create a bar chart to represent the sales profit by salesperson. Organizing the chart from highest to lowest sales profit, you will first go back to the sales data worksheet. that has all the information from the sales. And for the bar chart, we are going to create our new pivot table. So as done previously, first highlight the entire table. And again, you are going to specify that you want the pivot table to be placed in a new worksheet. Now to organize the different worksheets that we are going to have for the different charts, let's name this one sales by salesperson. So for this bar chart, we are going to be relating the total price from the sales to the salesperson. Take a moment and pause the video to practice creating the pivot table you would need to create to make this bar chart, and come back when you are done. In this case, we have the total price category as values and the salesperson as rows. And again, we can format the numbers here to be shown as US dollars by highlighting the cells and here selecting currency. So, and again, we can remove the two decimal places, clicking on this decreased decimal icon. Within the pivot table, we can also rearrange it to list the salesperson from highest sale profits to lowest. And this can be done by selecting the drop down menu next to the salesperson, then clicking on sort by value. Now let's represent this as a bar chart. You will start by selecting the data from cell A3 to B9. And here we are going to look at the different charts that are available to us. And in this case, we are going to be creating a clustered bar chart. So where it says bar, it's the first option that we have, and click enter. You will notice that the bar chart has been organized, showing the sales from smallest sales to largest sales. So the reverse of what we have. We can actually reverse this by formatting the chart as we did previously. To format the chart, you will right click on the chart and you can reverse the order in the vertical axis. So selecting the vertical axis section, you can then select to show the categories in reverse order. We have now reversed the order and we have flowers being shown as the salesperson with the highest sale profits all the way down to Asfand. Now you will again want to change the title for the chart, so you could do that under chart title. And in this case, we could call it sales by salesperson and then click enter. And again, you can change the legend from the graph since it doesn't give us any useful information, and we can deselect the legend icon here. Another formatting option that you have not yet seen is to have the actual value of the total cells listed next to each bar chart instead of having to look at the horizontal axis to figure out the approximate value that the bar chart is showing. And we can do this under the series total. So here we go. And it's going to be the icon for the data labels. And since we are already showing the values next to each bar, we don't need the labels on the horizontal axis. To remove these labels, you would go into the horizontal axis menu and down here where it says label position, you would select none, and you could see that the horizontal axis labels have now been removed. To finalize the formatting for this chart, you can again change the color of the bars if you wish. Under the series total section, you will change the color in the fill option, and in this case I am going to choose the light orange color. Now you are going to create pie charts to represent the percentages of sales by product category and the percentages of sales profits by city. Pie charts are very useful to use when you are interested in assessing the data as percentages instead of its actual value. For example, with the sales data that we have, We could be interested in assessing what percentages of the total sales belong to each product category. And in this case, we would probably not really care about how many items of each category were sold, but what percentage of the total sales belong to each product category. To create this pie chart, you will first need to create a new pivot table. Pause the video and take a moment to practice creating this pivot table and come back when you have completed this step. I have called this new worksheet items sold by category to distinguish it from the other worksheets we have been creating throughout this video. In this pivot table, you will now see listed how many items were sold for each of the four categories: bars, cookies, crackers, and snacks. However, for the pie chart, instead of having the numbers of items sold, what we really want is to have it expressed as a percentage of the total sales. This can be done directly on the pivot table. You can right click on any of the values with the pivot table and then select show values as percentage of the gram. You can right click on any of the values within the pivot table and then select show values as percentage of the gram total. And you will see that now the pivot table has changed these values to show them as percentages. Now to create the pie chart, you will highlight the cells from cell A3 to B8. Then you will go to the ribbon, select insert. So the first icon appears and now we have our pie chart. We can see with this pie chart that the category with the largest percentage of sales was cookies. And this chart gives us really useful information about which type of products or categories of products are successful. As with the other charts, there are a couple of formatting options that we can do. And under chart title, we'll change it to something like percentage of sales by category. Press enter. We can then choose to have the categories, or we could choose to list the name of the categories within their section of the pie chart. If we prefer this option, we could add this in the series total section, and where it says data labels, we would select to show the category name and percentage. And you could see here now that the labels for the different categories are shown next to their section, as well as the percentage of their values. Since we are showing the categories with each section, we can now deselect the legend so that the categories don't appear twice. As you can see, legend has been removed. And with this pie chart, we could see that 45% of the sales came from selling cookies, followed by 38% from bars, and 9% from snacks, 8% from crackers. Another pie chart that would be useful to have is looking at the percentage of sale profits by city. This would give us insights on how different cities where these products are sold compared to one another, and which cities might benefit from additional resources or stop. Pause the video and take a moment to create the pivot table and the pie chart and come back when you are done. With the pivot table and the pie chart, you can see that the city with the highest sales profits was Boston with 39%, and the one with the lowest sales profits was San Diego with 14%. When creating the chart, always remember to include an appropriate title for the chart and format the label so the information is easy to interpret by anyone else who might look at this chart. Now that we have created all of our charts, the last step is to assemble them in form of dashboard so that we can have access to all of this information on one single screen. The dashboard is very useful when you want to present an overall analysis of the data to your team members without having to go into each individual worksheet. Now you are going to learn how to create a dashboard that summarizes all of this information in one single screen. Dashboards are often used in Excel to display overviews of large sets of data where you are analyzing different aspects of data, and it all comes together to paint an overall picture. In our case, we have sales information for the year of 2020 and have broken down the information into different charts that assess different aspects of the sales, such as the sales trend throughout the different months of the year or the sales profit by salesperson, etc. With the dashboard, we will combine all the information in one single screen that will allow us to interpret the overall trends and sales. With the data that we have to create the dashboard, we will add a new worksheet by clicking on plus sign, and we'll name this worksheet dashboard. Then position the worksheet. So here we go. Now that we have the new worksheet for the dashboard, what we'll be doing is we'll be copying and pasting the different charts that we have created in the previous task and organizing them on the screen. The first thing we will want to do is have a uniform background for the dashboard. You can do this by clicking on the top left corner of the worksheet. We will be highlighting the cells, and we are going to give all these cells a light gray fill color by clicking on the drop down arrow next to the graph icon and selecting the color here. Now we can see that we have just a uniform light gray background for our dashboard. The next step is to start pasting the charts on the dashboard. The first chart we are going to add is the sales trend by month. You will go to the sales by month, select copy, then you will go back to the dashboard, click wherever and select, paste. And here we have the first chart that will form part of our dashboard. Pause the video and copy the remaining three charts to the dashboard and come back when you are done. Once the charts have been added, you can play around with the position and size of the charts. Charts are most commonly used in dashboards, but small tables can also be included. For example, a table we did not create is looking at the number of items sold for each product type. So include that into our dashboard. We could create a new pivot table with total items sold for each product type by going to the sales data worksheet, highlighting all the cells and inserting a new pivot table like we have done in the previous tasks, positioning it into new worksheet. And for this pivot table, we could first label the worksheet. So sales by product type. And for the pivot table, we would have the quantity as the values and the product as the rows. You will then highlight the table from cell A3 to B12, select copy, and then you will go back to the dashboard to paste the table. Now the idea is to have everything organized and easy to see from one single screen. Pause the video and take a moment to adjust the position of the charts and the table within the dashboard and come back when you are done. Congratulations! You have successfully completed the course Create Charts and Dashboards using Microsoft Excel. In this video, you have learned how to create different type of charts in Excel to analyze the sales data of a sample company. You have learned how to create pivot tables from the sales data provided to summarize and analyze different aspects of the data, and then use the pivot table to create line, bar, and pie charts. You have learned how to assemble these charts into a final dashboard that summarize all the information in one screen so that you or your colleagues can assess the overall trends of the sales with the charts presented. Thank you very much for completing this project.